there's a pretty famous example of a podcast changing their theme song, years after they had originally launched.
What's that?
And that was Sam Harris had this theme for his podcast, and then he changed it to this like really like dystopian a guitar strummy weird thing, acoustic thing, and the internet just broke. and he changed it back. He's like, I'm sorry I pissed everyone off. I'll go back. I'm fine. I'm okay.
Yep.
We'll do the old one.
No, sometimes people kind of get into the brand. I've noticed Jenny and I watch Great British Baking Show, and this show's been on for over a decade, probably 15 years, something like that. And they've got a very British montage with lots of close-ups and a little bit of a white vignette, how BBC likes to do.
Right.
But one of the things that you see in this, well, first of all, it's dated. The footage is probably originally standard definition, and now everything's high definition, so it's noticeably not modern quality. But one of the judges on the show pointed out that all the little cakes that they show, one of them has a bunch of raspberries on the top, and it's missing a berry in one of the rows. And nobody bothered to fix that. Nobody's fixed it in post. And now for years, having watched this show, every time I see the open, I can't not see the gap where a raspberry should be.
Where's that berry?
Where's the berry?
And I should say dissonant, not dystopian. I meant to say dissonant sounding guitar. Just wanted for the record.
Yeah, there you go. Maybe a little both. Dystopian. And you are listening to The Soapbox. I'm Paul.
And I'm Eric.
This all started out with a list. What's that all about?
So I've compiled a list over the years of things that just bother, things that grind my gears. And I shared that list with you.
And I thought, you know what? That would make interesting conversation. Sometimes I'm going to want to agree with you, and it's just going to be something we talk about. Other times, though, I'm going to want to steel man the opposite position because I think that's just interesting conversation.
Yeah, and keep in mind, I'm always right, but Paul's just a really good debate. I like to talk about wasteful business practices.
Okay. So what's your soapbox? What grinds your gears on that?
So I've got a couple in mind in particular, but just in general terms, practices that businesses have adopted, and then competitors have followed, because that's kind of what happens. Someone tries something new and it makes money, and then the others say, "Oh, well, let's do that too." You enable some kind of a practice that's terribly wasteful, because it sells more widgets, right? And I'll give you the one that really grinds my gears. School photos. We're terrible about getting photos of the kids annually to give to grandma and grandpa and all that. Honestly, lately
George.
Yeah, we just. I'm pretty sure Jen and Kevin have texted us a picture of the 5-year plus old photos they have on their fridge of our two kids that look nothing like them now. And we honestly kind of resorted to just using the soccer photos as their annual photo, because I guess you don't take photos of your kids once they're in college, right? I guess that's...
I don't know if there's many photos of me in college.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that's a good thing, because there was a very rapid season of hair loss where I was still in denial.
Yeah.
And have you heard it framed as toilet bowl hair?
Yeah.
It's basically, you've got the gap in the middle, and then all the remaining hair sort of makes a toilet seat, like a public toilet seat look on the top of your head. And I saw one of these rare pictures of myself, age 24, maybe 23. Yeah. And I had this moment of panicked self-awareness. Yeah. Like, why doesn't my mirror show me this? But no, pictures are not a common thing for a lot of... Maybe now with devices.
And I can imagine Facebook, then and now type thing. Maybe there's a... Anyway, point being, very often the school system would have a photographer come in, big old umbrella light thing. What do you call it?
Yeah. So I don't know if you have noticed our podcast fans that watch video. We've been doing video the last couple go-rounds, and you're going to see me rubbing my eyes like this a lot because we've got this very bright octabox, and it's supposed to make us look good.
I mean, it just makes our heads shiny. So the school system would have a photographer come in, they'd line up all the kids, take their photos, and then lately, and I don't know, kids are 8th grade and junior in high school, so I feel like photos are starting to phase out or whatever. But the last practice I saw was they went ahead and, you could give print out little smaller versions of the photos, the different
like proofs,
yeah, and have like a watermark on it. You don't want them taking that. You'd send that home with, then there's an order form, you can get the thing, and it's always, there's another grind my gear in the grind my gear, which is, the photos are expensive, but if you want the digital version, that's even more crazy expensive, and that's
because they're not getting money off the prints.
Yeah, everyone just wants the digital. So there was a short time period where I would actually take the ones they sent us and do a really good scan of them and save them as well. Okay, but what they started doing was giving you the photos. Like, here they are.
With watermark or without watermark?
No watermark, full size. Here are all the photos. If you keep them, you owe us this much money. If you don't keep them, just give them back to the school, and they shred them.
So this is like the Littleton Coin Company scam, or the what was the one where they sent you CDs and if you kept them? Oh,
I was thinking that like you pay a penny for. It was like Columbia House.
Yeah, wasn't the business model there like pay the penny?
Yeah,
they send you the CDs and then you agree to pay for the CDs if you decide to keep them. But then everybody just kept them because there was no credit card on file.
Yeah,
right. And I almost got taken advantage of with this coin collecting thing. Do you know I'm a coin collector? Have I ever brought this up?
Oh, I don't think you should have told everyone that.
I have a huge coin collection. It's got to be worth 50 or 60 cents at this point.
Okay.
No, I do have a coin collection.
Do you?
And I've had it a long time. I've got a lot of really just old stuff in there. I like doing the quarter books with the state quarters and things like that.
Yeah. Okay.
It's fun to do with the kids.
Yeah.
But I guess the algorithm picked up on this, and I got an advertisement for, hey, you for $1, we're going to send you, $20 worth of coins or whatever the deal was. So I did. I'm like, what's the catch? I thought I read the fine print. Clearly, I didn't read the fine print, because the fine print was they also send you a bunch of other coins. And if you keep the other coins, then they charge you for the other coins. Mm-hmm. So your $1 or whatever that I spent is just to get the credit card on file. You think, oh, they made a mistake. They've shipped this to me and it's free. Or you're lazy and you don't send it back. And now they got you. They got you for like $30.
Yeah. So. Now this is I'm going to throw this in here as a PSA, because didn't you tell me once that you can get a temporary credit card where basically it's one purchase?
There are services you can sign up for where you can put your credit card on file with them, and then they create what's essentially single serving credit card numbers for this exact type of application. I think you have to pay for it. So you have to do the math on like what's going to cost you more. Are you regularly the type of buyer who's going to participate in one of these trial type things, and then do you want to just kind of have a safety net so you don't have to keep up with it all?
Yeah,
I think there's virtue in that.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever been really snookered by this sort of thing, but it could have happened, and such a small thing, maybe I didn't notice, but what would I know about getting scammed, right? Episode 1
and the future episode.
Yeah,
if we ever get around to it.
That's true. Anyway, so you got a company and they basically use and this one, we can get into environmental reasons and all that, sure. But I'm just talking about, this is printing photos on paper of your kid, having that just introduced into the world, and then just shredding it if you say no.
Just getting rid of it altogether.
Yeah. It's just...
Yeah, I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that because they've already gone to the effort and expense.
Yeah.
And I have done some photography and some videography, and I'm aware that when you are in a creative industry, you're seeking compensation for your talent, the fact that you've invested in equipment. Mm-hmm. But to be compensated for that is difficult. It's a difficult ask. And one of the common tropes in that world is exposure. Have you heard this?
No.
So among photographers and videographers in particular, one of the things that they're often asked to do is, oh, hey, could you come do a professional headshot for me? Hey, I need a passport picture. And then instead of saying, I'm going to fairly compensate you for your talent and your time, people will say, oh, it'll be great exposure for you.
Yeah.
You know, shoot a commercial for me for free, and then we'll put your company's name at the very last second of the video. And then the trope or the meme that gets associated with that is, oh, that's great because it turns out my landlord needs 500 exposure this month in order for me to continue to have a home. So
exposure, yeah.
So yeah, that precipitates then a need to find ways to monetize. And I was told, and I think this is solid advice for the creatives in the world, you want to have a good, better, best value proposition for the products that you're going to sell.
Yeah.
So good is the thing that you expect most people to purchase. That's going to be your wallet, 4x6s, and maybe one 5x7. Your better is going to be like, oh, well, let's do a framed 8x10. And then your best is going to be, well, get the digital copy and you have the rights to print as many versions of this as you want, and it costs you the most. Because they're not making a ton of money on the print itself. What they're trying to do is figure out how to monetize the fact that they set up the gear and they went to the school and they did all the stuff. And how do they extract value back from that? So in principle, I get that. And I think one of the problems, and since I'm trying to play devil's advocate here, and I know a little bit about this topic, one of the problems that they had with the watermarked print was the fact that there's a Photoshop technique where you can actually trace the shape of the watermark, and then you can make a copy of the layer and duplicate that copy and then use that with one of the pass-through effects to negate the watermark. And it's it perfectly erases the watermark.
You heard it here first, kids.
Also, not that I encourage you to do this, but the AI tools in Photoshop have gotten so good that now you can do a generative erase. So you can just highlight the watermark and you can generate what it thinks should be behind it. And with fair accuracy, it actually does a pretty good job of substituting a good picture where a good picture didn't used to be. So I think what you're describing is a response to all of these digital tools.
I get it, yeah.
Because the type of person who would hack a copy of Photoshop and then do this is the type of person that would do this.
Right, yeah.
And I think they're probably fighting that. And then just to compound the problem a little bit further, for those that don't have the experience editing, there's all kinds of Facebook groups where people ask you to Photoshop things for them. And I used to be a member of one until it got really salty and people got just, like everything, it starts out really great and then you add too many people and it hits critical mass and it becomes just ugly and horrible. And that's the internet.
Yeah. I do like the one guy that has that thing set up and he takes the request literally.
Yes.
So he does, the craziest thing.
Make me smaller.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, now you're as big as a Barbie doll.
Right. Or can you make us the same height? And he just kind of like stretches your neck or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. That's pretty funny.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was there for.
Yeah.
I was there for the memes. I was there for the laughs. I was there for the occasional sentimental, my grandpa died and this is the only picture I have of him. Can you help restore it?
Yeah. Okay.
And I enjoyed doing that. I thought that was fun.
Did you ever get here's my, like a certificate of, something you did, a online class or something. Can you change the name on it to my name or something like that?
So
I
didn't see anything like that, but the morally questionable thing I did see and directly related to this is please remove the watermark.
Yeah. Okay.
And sometimes they were cunning and they would say something like, this picture's 20 years old. This photographer's not in business anymore. We don't have the originals. And that's a moral gray area if it's true. I don't believe it is true. But you'd also have the folks that are like, oh, I just can't afford to buy my kids' school pictures. Can you help me steal it? It's like, no.
Yeah.
Like patently no. If you can't afford something, then you can't have it. And that sucks for you. And I feel bad for you. But, I don't have a PlayStation 5 at my house because I've made the decision that is a little bit too expensive. I don't want to get invested in that whole new platform when our family is a Nintendo Switch family. Would I like to have all the things? Sure. But I'm going to just get the things that are within my means, and that's how we should all sort of approach that problem.
Well, I can use Photoshop to paint, to get you a box, PlayStation 5 box, and you just leave it in the corner and be like, yeah.
Nice. That reminds me of another video, and there's so many rabbit trails here today, but there's a guy that set up a fake Facebook marketplace thing where somebody had been scamming folks, and he shows up with a PlayStation 5 box, and it's just full of like rocks or something. And I guess the problem was, and I may be butchering this, so if you know, like, please in the comment section correct me, because I'm doing this just from recollection here. But I guess the problem was that they would agree on a price, they'd show up in person, and then they would try to haggle in person because it's harder to say no.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so this lady like haggles this kid, hands him some cash. He doesn't even like agree to it, then picks up the box and walks away with it. And then the people running the cameras come out and they're like, she basically just stole that from you. And he's like, well, it's rocks. So does that mean we just basically stole her cash? It's just like this great Uno reverse card moment where somebody thinks they're taking advantage of somebody else. And now you got rocks, box of rocks.
Yep. That's wow.
So corporate waste.
Yeah.
Let's come on back for full circle here. I think that's a great example. Taking something that does exist, right? You bothered to bring it into the world, and then you got rid of it. You mentioned another one, and I don't know if you want to play devil's advocate here or not, but this is definitely one that that resonates a little bit. The lights stay on when nobody's there.
Yeah.
So think like a Home Depot or a Kroger, or now that Walmart's not 24 hours, a Walmart. I assume this is true in a lot of these locations, though I've not been there after close. Certainly it's true at Fayette Mall, where I used to work. A lot of these places are on all the time, whether somebody happens to be there or not.
Yeah.
What's the rationale for that?
Obviously I think it's a affordable security measure. The cost that it takes for the lights to be on. It's worth that cost because you've got better visibility, and in places where they've got security guard or cameras or whatever, you have well-lit area, and it's one of those things that I would think we have the technology now. I mean, even walking through the freezer aisle of the grocery store,
the lights turn on when you're there.
Yeah, the lights are motion activated
if they work.
Yeah.
Now, if you use the Kroger on Alexandria, aka the Hood Kroger. Yeah, you're lucky to have lights.
Well, that's fair.
Or leave with both kidneys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, in your words, right? If you can't afford to go to the good Kroger in Beaumont Center, then do you really need lights?
Pay with cash or pay with organs that are not necessary. That's your choice.
Yeah. So I don't know anything about the logistics of night shift security, all that, but it just seems dumb. I don't know.
I'm going to invoke a name here, and I brought this up. We usually, so I'll look behind the curtain for just a moment, but usually we don't research these topics too heavily because we want the conversation to be organic. We want it to be more opinion-based than fact-based, and so at times we'll get it wrong. But we do pregame a little bit over a delicious which sandwich. And
thank you, Justin. I think, is it Justin? I don't know. Somebody.
We're going to say Justin, and if we got it wrong, correct us in the comment section. But yeah, we sort of pre-gamed the topic here, and we talked about this a little bit. And so then on the topic of corporate waste, one name comes to mind that I want to invoke, and you weren't familiar with him. No. That is Dumpster Dive King.
Yeah.
So the premise of this guy's entire YouTube existence, and I say YouTube, he probably is a TikToker. I catch him on Facebook Reels, which is
old person TikTok.
It's like reruns. It's like
it's syndicated.
It's like catching something on TBS. I don't know when it originated, but now it's old and I get to see it.
Yeah.
Dumpster Dive King's whole shtick is that he just goes behind big box retail stores and he looks at what they're throwing away. And if it's good, he upcycles it and he takes it. So this is a green initiative. This is something that I think on the whole reduce, reuse, recycle. Reduce wasn't the thing that got done.
Yep.
Recycling is energy intensive and not ideal. This reuse portion is like It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's the best. It's the Great Depression era philosophy of using things and then using them until they're no good anymore.
Yeah.
But the stuff he finds is amazing, to the point where some people have accused him of planting stuff in the dumpsters. And it's possible, right? I don't believe everything that I see. I'm eternally a skeptic, but I do believe some of the stuff this guy stumbles upon is real. Simply because he'll get excited about, oh, here's a Monster energy drink display. It's in great shape. Why would they throw this away? Somebody'd love to have it in their man cave, right? Clearly, that's the kind of thing that a store would throw away. Yeah. But then he'll open up a box and it's like, oh, all brand new DVDs, still in the shrink wrap.
Yeah.
If there's something wrong with it, it's not apparent, and I wouldn't have been apparent to the $12 an hour retail worker that had to chuck that thing. Yeah. So what's going on with all that corporate waste? Yeah. Because he'll pull a pallet of energy drinks. I think he recently found not just a case of them, but a pallet of them, many cases of the Paris Hilton branded pink energy drink.
Yeah. Oh, would this be a gross? I think yeah.
Is that what that's called?
I think there's some, maybe it's 144.
I don't know if they're gross. I prefer Prime. Bottom cha.
But I think that's where grocery store came from. You get things in gross, and anyway.
I forget. I don't have to do my own rim shot. I can just.
Yeah.
I need to get better at this. There's buttons.
All right, we're back from a break. Okay.
So energy drinks was one. He's found DVDs. The man has found like fully intact furniture. Seasonal is big. He'll find Valentine's Day stuff on February 15th that just shouldn't be in the garbage. Somebody's gonna want it. And maybe if you're the type of person that has like a peddler's mall or something like that, you'd want to have it. But we as a society are so incredibly wasteful. Yeah. So the energy, you bring it up, and I think that it's a valid concern. Illuminating a space maybe has a safety component to it. Sure, yeah. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the fact that stuff is so disposable that they'd rather throw it away than let it occupy a shelf. And I think that there's an economic reason for this.
Oh, sure. I'm sure it's a line item, or the manager. Well, let me react just a little bit. It could be a number of things. You could have, just a disgruntled worker that either has to go put all this stuff on the shelf, or just chuck it in the trash, and that's just.
And maybe they were planning to come back and get it later.
It's got that. Or you could just someone just did the math and said, you know what, we got the new non-gross energy drink coming. These are expired or almost expired.
So the expiration date's part of the shtick, right? Okay. He actually looks and he won't pull it out of the trash if it's got a expired date on it. But
isn't that just usually sell by?
I'm not sure enough on that. I'll say with certainty. I think yes. I treat it that way in my house. I'll do the old smell check. If it doesn't smell bad, we'll still use it.
So we're the same boat, and it turns out my wife's in the business of labels for pet food mostly, but she knows a fair bit about labeling practices just across the board on food. And she'll very often say, I'll be like, well, the mayo said it, expires on blah blah blah, and she's like, well, that's just the sell by date. Does it look bad? Does it smell bad? So there's another, we try to use up stuff, put it, freeze things that leftovers and whatnot. But yeah, I think anyway. I don't think the King dumpster
dive King. Yeah.
I don't think he has to stop at the expiration date, and that could be just safety.
One of the reasons why he's doing that is that he was flipping stuff. So he for a time maintained a resale component. And now I think he's gotten to such a volume of inventory that he's turning around and he's just donating it. Yeah. But, this would be, I think this could be just a quick hit or something like that. Don't donate something that you yourself wouldn't want. During the food drive, stop giving sauerkraut and start giving, the Bush's baked beans, the really good stuff.
I'll say this in a similar vein. One of the things I've always found frustrating, and this isn't a business practice, this is maybe liability or whatever. We'll be at like a hotel for a conference and they'll have box lunches and everybody leaves early. So they ordered way too many box lunches, and you'll be like, well, can we just take all these box lunches to like a shelter or something, and it's like, well,
It's been sitting out.
Or it's that. And I think some of those laws, rules, whatever they might be, started to change because in the past, at RSS when we hosted here in Lexington, they were able to take box lunches over to
The women's
shelter. Yeah. So I think
I think part of it depends on how long it's been out and how it was initially stored.
but there's got to be like a letter of the law.
You say that until liability creeps in. You only have to get sued one time before you change your moral position on that.
Well, true. Well, but yeah. Okay. There's my soapbox there. We have this food. It, may make some people sick, but it more likely will fill their bellies and
probably won't kill you. Here you go. Day old turkey sandwich.
We were in DC. Were we not in DC at the sandwich shop, and we saw a guy
eating out of the
dumpster, and it's like,
so maybe, and I've seen restaurants do this where they know they've got a product that somebody might still want. They're legally not allowed to give it away. So they'll put it in the clean dumpster, the clean 55-gallon container. And they kind of have this wink, nudge deal with some of the people that have need in the back to say, look, we're throwing this away. This is our trash, and we're not going to watch it. And it's in a clean vessel. Please don't eat from it. Wink. And I think that's probably the safe way to handle something like that. On the retail shelf space, the other thing that I'm aware of that I don't think is often talked about or discussed is that retailers, they get kickbacks from manufacturers to have certain shelves dedicated for their product.
Right.
Have you been to Kroger and seen the reps reorganizing the shelf, label facing everything, and then taking pictures to make sure that it's on the right shelf, that the wrong products aren't merchandised next to it? This is a whole underground part of retail that many people may not be aware of.
Yeah.
So when it comes to throwing perfectly good product in the dumpster, there's different calculus because one, having maybe a competitor's product is making them money simply by offering it, whether it's sold or not. And two, the cost to ship it back to them may exceed what the value of the actual product is. And so then it becomes kind of a write-off.
Yeah. The market rep people taking photos made me think of, I did work at did I work at a grocery store or did I just go through like an advanced training? I think I went through like some training. I was going to take the job and they did some like training or something like that. And anyway, doesn't matter. I was a bagger at Piggly Wiggly. That's what it was. And one of the things, I can't remember my own jobs. One of the things you had to do when you had like downtime was facing. I think they called it facing.
Oh yeah.
You'd go through the store and you would pull product to the front of the shelf to make it look like it was full. Display better and people can reach it easier. Right? There are a bunch of reasons, but that's an inventory nightmare. Because now
you don't know if it's full.
You don't know if it's full. You gotta. So
can I name check somebody here for a moment?
Yeah.
I don't often do this. Usually I'll say, a person. I don't want to name names. I'm going to name names here. I'm going to go on the record. I used to work for Best Buy, and we had this one manager, Martin Buckhead. And you can imagine what we might have called him since we didn't like him. But Martin Buckhead. If you're listening, Martin, you are the worst manager I've ever had, and you have no business managing other people. I'm going to just say that as explicitly as I can without being explicit.
Martin, I'd like to have you on the podcast to talk about all Paul's shortcomings.
Do it.
Okay.
But I'll hit you in the face. Martin had this need for things to be laser lined on the shelf. That's what he would say. Laser line. And I understand it, right? You want your store to have a professional appearance. You want things to be clean. You want things to be nice. But he didn't use context to decide if he should bark orders at you. And his MO, he'd lock the store. He wouldn't let you out until he had checked that the department was cleared by his standards. And I had a day where I'd open the store. So I got there super early. I opened the store. My department manager said, Paul, the afternoon shift called in. Can you close the store too? So I worked an open close shift, and I told him, I was like, I'm in college. Like I need to study.
That's like labor
I need to be
violations,
home.
aren't? No?
I was over 18, so they can do it.
Child labor.
There was overtime rules at play, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they broke the law. I don't know. Morgan & Morgan, you want to look into that for me? Martin Buckhead. So I told the supervisor, I said, well, Martin makes us stay super late. I don't want to do that. And he said, just be there, and as soon as customers leave, you can leave too. Of course, he wasn't there. So then Martin comes in. He's like, you got a laser line. And I said, well, I was talking to Anthony, and I was trying to explain myself. He interrupts me. I don't care. You got a laser line. And then he starts walking through the department to check it as if I care at that point. Sees that there's a shelf full of these dye sublimation printers. It used to be fashionable that you'd put a memory card into a dye sub printer, and it would do 3 layers of this dye ink on it.
Okay. And
then you'd have instant pictures, and that was a thing for a minute.
That was a thing.
He sees that they're like out of line. Because I didn't laser line. I didn't close the department. He kicks the shelf. Kicks all these printers off the shelf, makes the problem way worse than it otherwise was, thinking he's making a point about how I didn't do my job. Well, I let him know angrily and in no ambiguous terms that I was the opener that day. I wasn't there to close, and I wasn't going to pick those printers up, and I'm leaving. And I quit the job like 2 weeks later. I was done with it. So Martin Buckhead, worst manager. And I think maybe bad management is one of the components we haven't touched on if we wanted to make that a loosely related concept here. But you've got folks that don't care.
Yeah.
They don't care about what's valuable. They don't care about giving to people that have need.
Leaving lights on.
Lights on because they can't be bothered to walk to the back of the store and turn it off.
Or don't want to look into like a motion sensor or a security system or all that. Yeah. I mean, there's a laziness component to it, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
do we have any closing thoughts here?
Well, I mentioned the digital photo, throwing away, creating something and then destroying it because you don't want to pay for it or you don't want to be burdened with that cost. Is that have a parallel?
Well, I'll tell you what, if you were offended by the notion of creating something and then getting rid of it just simply because you don't want it anymore.
Right.
You want to talk about abortion?
I was teeing you up, but
next time on the Soapbox. Probably not.
No.
Thanks for listening to the Soapbox. Eric, how can people find us?
Well, conveniently, we put everything on our Linktree site. You can go to Linktree, search SoapBoxLex, and you'll find all of our socials there, plus ways to reach us, ways to engage, and some of our original content, so you can see some of the other stuff that we do.